Hello, everyone. I initially thought I was going to have a mic today, but I don't, alas. So yeah, I'm Justin. I am a developer, and we are fresh off the boat from presenting in Malaysia. And I am here to share with you our experiences, but I see a lot of people who sat here who is also featured in that photo. And you might have different views about exhibiting to me, but we will open the floor to that in the end, but just bear with me. So I'm a developer for Crab Walk Games. We call ourselves Crab Walk Games, but we're actually just three people. We started earlier this year, and I Need Some Space is the first title that we're working on. It's actually the first long-term game that I'm making, apart from a game jam with Dixon. Here is some shameless advertising about our game, but I will assure you that it has something about exhibiting and it's about what type of game it is, but all this will become clear as the presentation goes on. But I Need Some Space. It's a sort of a space adventure game, but you have to solve a bit of puzzles. The story is you bought this space caravan to run away from your parents on Space Craigslist, and you figure out that this caravan is actually filled with a lot of weird shit. This is the rest of the caravan, so you see the cockpit there, and there's more stuff around. You can play games and you can discover things. So the first thing that we've made is to do with the computer terminal, and there's mini games there, there's text games. There's also a microwave, and you can microwave stuff, get some SpaghettiOs. But after you complete these mini games, you unlock some coordinates, which you can see on the screen here. And if you put in the right coordinates, you're teleported to a new world where you can play different games. And you have a planet where it's a survival game, and you have another planet where it's a farming game, and so on. We still haven't made any of that yet, so perhaps maybe in the future you can see it. But that's what we've got so far, and this is largely what the people at the exhibition got to experience. And so I think it was in August, and while we were making this game, Johnson encouraged us to apply for Level Up Play, which is a Malaysia-based exhibition or a games expo. And we thought, hey, what the hell? We've never really done this, but we thought we'd apply, and we got in. So we can take a step back and think about what's good about expos in general without being a presenter. I like to think that when you turn up to these events, be it like E3 or EGX or things like that, it gives you a pulse on the games industry. There's some tacit knowledge that you can't really read in articles or in YouTube videos or IGN videos, but you really have to be there to experience what the situation is like. One example is talking to developers there. You sort of know what the investment environment is like, so how easy you're able to access capital these days, how easy it is to pitch to publishers and get your game approved and funded. And you'll definitely not see that in articles. And you get to play a lot of games and across a lot of varieties. And because I'm a developer, so this presentation is going to be sort of geared, or it's from the scope of a developer. Like the things I talk about might be more applicable to people who are trying to develop games, indie games in particular. And in our specific situation, we're also looking to pitch to publishers early next year. And this exhibition has also been a very valuable experience towards that. And also there's networking opportunities. So you get to speak with other developers. Sometimes there might be publishers, there might be advertising agencies that are there. And it is a great opportunity to talk to them about things and just to generally keep in correspondence with them, because you never know when that connection is going to be useful. And also it's great to just make new friends. But how is that related to actually exhibiting as part of your expo, to take the game that you've painstakingly made and to bring it out there for the whole world to scrutinize? So I would actually say that all these apply, but they're sort of supercharged. I think when you become a developer and you exhibit at these things, you feel the pulse of the games industry, but in respect to how you yourself stand in that industry. You actually start to think about, how does my game fit in with the whole ecosystem? How does my game fit in with the other competitors in the genre? It's sort of like making a game and testing a game is a bit different. When you test a game, different regions in your brain get activated. And so as an exhibitor, I think different regions get activated. You're actually able to get a new perspective on what it is to make games and to present them. And it sort of also works when you experience a wide variety of games. But it's also the flip side. You get a wide variety of people that will play your games. People that might not even speak English. There are people from all age groups. There are people from all religious backgrounds. And they will play your game. And that's, I think, quite a brutal way to experience. When you look at people's reaction towards your game and they're losing interest, it becomes a soul-crushing moment, right? But it's important to experience that and to know what your target audience is and what ticks their boxes. And same for networking opportunities. When you're talking to other developers in the exhibition, being a fellow exhibitor, it gives you more legitimacy. They'll actually be more willing to share with you their progress. They're more likely to be friendlier towards you because it feels like you're in this battle together against the world. So, as I said, it's a really, really good opportunity for testing. This is actually my partner, Ernest, there. But sometimes we would have someone who is a secondary school student in Kuala Lumpur, where the event is held, and they will play it. And to our surprise, we did not know that people use the arrow keys to play an FPS game. We would expect them to use the WASD key, but actually they use their right hand on the arrow keys. And so, we've never really thought about that problem. And I think exhibitions are an excellent way to get a whole lot of testing done in your game, provided that your game is in a condition that is ready to be tested. So yeah, it's very important to really look at how people play your game, how they experience it. Do they look interested in your game? At what moment do they lose interest? What moment do you see the irises get a little bit bigger and you know that you've got them hooked on the game? And it's also a really good opportunity. And I know, comparison is the death of happiness, but it's also a very good opportunity to compare yourselves to other people who are exhibiting. And it's that, why are people stopping at other people's booths? How are they doing right? Is it their game that's better, or is it their booth that's better? Is it because they have a 40-inch monitor, or is it because they actually have a better game? And we actually had the luck to be next to another game called Copycat, where a lot of people stopped there, and we were wondering, what's making people who are walking along stop at that booth more than ours? And I will get onto this later, but I also became quite good friends with the people who are next door. But I think, just an aside, when you're bringing a game to an expo, it's also important to think whether the genre is suitable for an expo. So here you have Doom Eternal and you have Guitar Hero, and I'll take these two as an example where these games are well suited for an expo because most people know how to play first-person shooters, I think. And I think most people, you see a rhythm game on a screen, it's pretty obvious what to do. When the thing goes to that point, press that button. It's very simple. When you have games that are more narrative rich, or when your games take a longer while to really understand, then you really have to think about whether your game is suitable for an expo, or how you can tweak your game or package it in a form that is readily digestible in an exhibition scenario. So you have What Remains of Edith Finch, where it's quite hard to get into this game. You get maybe 30 minutes in when you really understand what's going on. But at an exhibition, when tons of people are lining up to play your game, you don't really have 30 minutes for each person. And same with something like Machinarium. That is a puzzle game where it could take you from an hour to like 2 to complete a puzzle. And you definitely don't want people playing that in an exhibition because people are not going to have the attention span to really wait and queue for your games when there are so many other enticing games to play. So what you can do is you can take a segment of your game that is very, very meaty, or that is very, very compact, that allows players to understand what it is and have fun, but without taking very long, because you are under different constraints than if you were alone in your room and browsing Steam and trying to pick what game you want to play. Because there are other competitors at the exhibitions and you are gunning for the consumer's attention. So at the expo, we also spoke with other developers about whether expos are a good way to market your game. And I think this really depends on who you are. So if you were a AAA developer, so you have CD Projekt Red here with the Cyberpunk and the Keanu Reeves thing that I'm sure everyone here has seen. And that is a great way to market your game, but you really do need a formidable marketing machine at your disposal to be able to pull off something like that, and the capital to rent out all the space. Another example that I would give of superstar AAA presence at games exhibitions is Cliffy B, the lead designer for Gears of War. And it is also the flagship product for the Xbox 360. And to them, it was a resounding success. And he even got to shake Bill Gates' hand after he presented. But speaking from an indie developer's point of view, I do not think that exhibitions are a particularly great way to market your game. And this is because in a day, you might get 100, 200 people tops at your booth, unless you've got a really big booth. So you get 50 or 100 people and you're presenting for 3 days, and it's really not that much traffic. You're actually much better off hoping to get in touch with a streamer and have them play your game and have tens of thousands of people watch your game and hopefully turn that into a Steam purchase. But I will say that exhibitions are a great way to market your games towards other businesses. It could be a publisher, or it could be other developers that see your game and they're like, oh, like you've got something going on here. Let's be friends. And when you make something cool in the future, I'll be in on the loop. But yeah, I don't think it's a particularly good way to market your game. You really shouldn't focus all your marketing budget on making it big at an exhibition, because that will probably not happen. But that's only my view. If anyone has a different view, we can discuss that later. This photo taken here is with a bunch of Australian developers, and I was actually here as well, but I wasn't here when the photo was taken because I had to catch a plane early the next morning. But yeah, I think it's a great way to network with other developers and to see the games that they're making and to really understand the culture of game making in other countries. So I'd say for Australia, none of the teams were mobile games, but for Hong Kong has a very strong bias towards mobile games. And I'm not saying that one platform is better than the other, but I'm saying when you turn up to these exhibitions, it's very, very interesting to see how different countries and different cultures approach games differently, or how their industry has certain biases, which when we're only confined to the Hong Kong market, we might not be aware of. And so Copycat, I mentioned just now, there are people that I've been in contact with. They actually, through our Instagram messages, we exchange nuances about publishing, how to find a publisher, get a publishing deal, at what point of the development cycle do you find a publisher, the nuances of regional publishers, and so on. And yeah, I think knowing how they approach this journey will definitely help us when early next year we will be on our own tracks into looking at publishers. So hopefully I've convinced you guys that exhibiting at exhibitions, it's a really, really good opportunity to get a full nourishment in terms of all things related to game development. And we made some mistakes going into the exhibition. It was the first exhibition that we've ever presented at. We didn't do things that we should have done, and I'm here to tell you guys on things that make it that bit more enticing for the people who pass by. So all of this information is very dependent on the expo. So for some expos, they will say you've got a table and you've got 2 chairs and there's a power outlet. But perhaps for some other expos, they'll actually provide a big TV for your game. So it really depends on the situation that you find yourself in. But for Level Up Play, we were actually told to submit some artwork, and we were told that we will have a table and 2 chairs and that's it. But we also had the opportunity or the option to rent more equipment if we see fit. But being broke indie developers, we do not have that luxury. And we only agreed to this trip because our hotels were paid for, but not the flight tickets. And it's also dependent on your game. So if you have a VR game, then obviously you want to reserve some space in your booth for people's movements. If you have a multiplayer game or a co-op game like Overcooked, then you probably want a big monitor so that both players can look at it at once. But if you have a competitive shooter and you don't want players to screen hack each other, then you should probably orient your monitors so that they can't screen hack each other. But this is entirely dependent on what game you're trying to present at the exhibition. It's usually a good idea to have monitors, or if you have the luxury, to have TVs so that people can see loud and clear what your game is all about. So you'll find yourself in a situation where people are playing your game, but then there's people who are also lining up to play your game. And sometimes we thought it would be helpful next time if we had a separate monitor here and we would show a compilation of what our game is all about, so that instead of looking at the person playing the game, they can look at a short and sweet video about how the game's mechanics work and what you can expect in the game, just to give it that bit more exposure to potential players. And also, we found that one of the games that attracted the most attention at the expo was actually a booth where there were loudspeakers and it was pumping a lot of bass. Because exhibitions are a very loud place. It's very easy to not even be able to hear yourself think. But if you have loudspeakers, and especially when your game has, very good sound design, very rhythmic melodies, then having big speakers definitely help in that sea of noise when you hear something coherent and you subconsciously get attracted to it. It's also a really good idea to have cards with QR codes there, smartly placed, so that if people want to see your Steam page or they want to see your Instagram page, then they can very easily do so. But I would also recommend that if you want to exchange information with other developers or other people in the business, then it might not be the best idea to show them your Steam page, but it might be a better idea to show them your WhatsApp number or your email in a QR code. So I would advise people to keep it separate. So a set of souvenirs for consumers and a set of cards for business relations. And yeah, just generally, like on setting up day, and it looks very sad and white and empty, but if you put some effort into it and just eliminate the white space, it creates a very cozy atmosphere, or whatever atmosphere you want to make. And yeah, this is it. I hope it's been educational. Thought all of this was actually quite obvious, but I also have the hindsight of actually being in one of these opportunities. And yeah, I would really recommend everyone else to give it a shot if the opportunity arises. So thank you.